Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's West here, back with another episode of the 2018 Beginner's Account Progression Series. As you may be able to tell by what's going on in the background here while I speak, we have some GB10 running. I'm really psyched about this team. You may notice some changes right off the bat, which is going to be that our Lapis is max leveled, and of course she's 6-starred. She was 6-starred in the last episode. But now our Belladillan is also 6-starred, and those are the only two 6-stars in this team. And you can see here we're able to clear GB10. I know this episode has been really late. Like the previous episode to this one was 2.5, maybe even 3 weeks before this, and I apologize for that. I've had a lot of stuff going on, but I have been farming on this account, and I do want to talk about all the things I did to get into GB10. So first things first, let's talk about the team composition I used. So I spent about a week after the previous video, maybe a week and a half, farming in GB7, just getting some runes for my units, and farmed a little bit along the way in Scenario in order to 6-star my Belladillan. And I'll go through and I'll talk about everybody's stats here. So first, let's start with the Magic Knight, since this is going to be the unit that's going to really carry me through the game. The unanimous decision based on the Discord chat and the comments in the previous video was that I shouldn't use fusion monsters in order to make the game more difficult for myself, and in order to use more of those natural 3-star monsters in the progression. So I've decided against making fusion monsters, and as such I have no reason to save Devilmon for anything. So I've actually gone ahead and I've been feeding Devilmon to the Magic Knight, the Water Magic Knight. It's not a terrible decision. However, if you take the Veramos route in this team, which would be the Veramos would replace your seal here, the Wind Harpoo. So if you chose to do that, then you would have that there, and you would use the Veramos leadership skill for more consistency. And if you chose to do that, then you'd be using the Devilmon to max skill him. And then you would use it on any natural 4-star and natural 5-star monsters only that don't have any fusible or farmable counterparts. For example, the Wind Ninja is a great unit in GB10 when you're trying to pick up the speed of your team, and his skill ups are farmable, so I wouldn't really recommend Devilmoning a unit like that. And that's just an example. But I would highly recommend saving your Devilmon for units where you're not going to be able to get the skill ups easily, at all. Natural 5-stars, like I said, if you fuse a Veramos, obviously in early game you're not going to be able to fuse a whole bunch of other Veramoses to max skill him, because that's like, what, 7 or 8 Veramos, a ridiculous amount of Veramoses. So I highly recommend using your Devilmon to get him max skilled, as you'll increase the chance of him landing the continuous damage effects and the stuns and all that. However, because of the circumstances of this series, I am only bringing Lapis up. I'm only scaling her up with the Devilmon, and I'm not worrying about Devilmoning anyone else, so I decided to max scale her. This doesn't decrease her cooltime turn or the amount of turns it takes for her abilities to be off cooldown. However, it does increase her damage, which makes her a little bit better here. But let's just go and talk about her runes. So to start with, we have a few of these runes that just came with the 5-star set, the 5-star purple set that we get for completing levels of the Scenario. You can see we now have a speed in slot 2. I talked about this in the last episode. For farming stages like Fame and Hell, and especially in GB10, you want your Magic Knight to be above 140 speed, because that means they're going to go before the waves, and Fame and Hell, it means they're going to move before the Inigamis and before the Awakened Fire Hellhound at the final stage of Fame and Hell. So if you want it to be reliable, having a speed slot 2 or having really good speed substats is what you want. I prefer speed slot 2, since Lapis's base speed is so low that the amount of substats you would need to have be in speed would be, it'd be a lot in order to hit that requirement. So you're going to see a recurring theme of speed, crit rate, crit damage, and attack. If you get HP and defense as well, that's amazing on her. You do want more survivability. I got really lucky with this rune. This happens to be a legendary rune. You can tell because I got rolls on the 4th substat, which means it started as a legendary rune. It rolled pretty well, crit rate and speed. We have a crit damage slot 4. This is mostly because of the high crit rate subs I have. I do not have a lot of crit damage on her. However, I have a lot of crit rate on her, which is why why I put that crit damage slot 4 on her. Like I said previously, if you're building a unit and you want to know when's the right time to transition into putting a crit damage in slot 4 versus an attack or a crit rate slot 4, it's when the substats on your other runes can support at least 75% of the crit rate. I prefer 80 to 85% crit rate. This crit rate is still not perfectly ideal. In fact, for Giants B10, 100% crit rate's not wasted because you're attacking water units, so you're still going to have a chance of not hitting crits on those water units unless you have 100% crit rate. But I'm at the point where I want to start focusing a little bit more on crit damage, and in terms of farming Fame and Hell, it helps a lot more to have the crit damage there, since I'm going to get 15% crit rate since I'm fighting against water monsters anyways. So I decided to keep that as a crit damage slot. So next we have our Belladine. So we still have this crazy 6-star fatal rune that just happened to roll defense and accuracy on it. It's, it gives us a lot of HP, which is really nice because Belladine's survivability is really important. Bella's going to provide that defense break, the strip, and the heal, so making sure Bella stays alive is important. If you're at this point in the game and you're wondering how to transition from Giants B7 to Giants B10, all of your units, you want them max skilled. It's so important that they get as many turns and as many opportunities to use their skill as possible. And then after that's done, you want to start aiming for like 180 and up speed for your supports, just so they can be really reliable. You can see here my Bella is 190 speed, and we'll go through these runes. But you're going to see a lot of his speed, accuracy, and then I'm going to aim for HP and defense where I can. This is a pretty decent rune. Moving forward, pretty much what I'm looking for is just more speed on my units. And of course, I want to retain that amount of HP and defense. For a lot of these units, I actually don't have enough HP for their survivability. Darien hasn't really changed that much. He's pretty much same old HP defense build with whatever I can. Just put him on like triple energy or whatever. I like to give him high accuracy, at least 45%, so he can reliably land the defense break and semi-reliably land the attack break, since the attack break is at a 50% harmful effect rate, with each hit for 2 hits. So I pretty much just want him to stay strong enough to survive, because as long as he survives, my team is taking 20% less damage. That's pretty huge. That's a pretty big chunk of damage that they're not taking. So that's pretty nice. Next here we have Seal, someone we weren't using in Giants B7 because we were using a cleanser. Now, we took out our Lulu here, and I'll explain that, because even if we cleanse the defense break, which is the way that Lulu is able to mitigate damage, and we do get a little bit of heal from Lulu as well, so it's not like it's only, we only have Lulu for the cleanse. But the other part of Lulu being here was Lulu kind of just took up a turn slot, because when Lulu wasn't giving immunity and cleansing our team or getting some heals for our team, she really wasn't doing any sort of damage to the boss. And the problem we had with our team wasn't surviving. And this is a concept that I struggled with when I was first starting the game. You can have a really safe team and it can still fail. And this is because there's kind of like a magic balancing point between the amount of damage your team does and the amount of healing and sustain your team has. Even if your team has a crazy amount of sustain, a crazy amount of heals, defense buffs, and all that sort of stuff, your team can still die because the giant just gets so many turns. Eventually, it's just going to kill you because you're not doing enough damage to it. So the big thing this team needed was a secondary damage source. So basically, if Lapis died on the way to the boss stage and we got to the boss stage, this team right here, these 4 units, would not be able to do enough damage to kill the boss. Sometimes they would eke it out, even with the cleansing, even with the healing, the damage reduction, the attack and defense buff. We just didn't have enough damage output. So what I did was I replaced Lulu with Seal so that we had this continuous damage effect on the second skill that lasts for 3 turns. This is really good because this is essentially every time this skill is used and it lands on the boss, that's 15% of the boss's max HP, spread over 3 turns. And at her speed, she pretty much gets 2 to 1 turns on the boss, almost. Or she does. She gets 2 turns for every turn the boss takes, about that. Plus, this has a 90% this is essentially a 90% accuracy skill, since it has a 50% bonus accuracy on that second skill landing the dots. So it's pretty much going to land on the boss. And also the mid-boss has about 115% resistance. I can't remember exactly how much, but it's above 100% resistance. So that 90% accuracy that she gets here is not redundant, because it also helps her at the mid-boss stage where she's landing those dots on the mid-boss, helping to clear that a little bit faster as well. In addition to that, she's a wind unit, so she takes less overall damage, which is why you can see her HP stat isn't amazing, but she still survives for the most part. and she also has her other two skills, which are also pretty influential to the team, which is the 40% attack bar reduction and the additional attack break. Now, since Darian's attack break is not super reliable, having an attack break that's on the first skill of a monster at the same rate as Darian's second skill is really, really neat, because we have a backup attack break, since that attack break is going to be pretty important in decreasing the damage we take. Especially since we're not going to have a cleanser in Lulu, we're going to have to use the attack break, the defense buff from Shannon, and the damage mitigation from Darian in order to keep our team alive. So this is the team I've been using. I'm going to go ahead and run it. And like I said, the only 6 stars I have here are Magic Knight and the Light Inagami. So Lapis and Bella are the only 2 6 stars. So, I mean, 2 6 stars for Giants B10, I think that's pretty good. This team can absolutely be faster using these exact same monsters as your rune quality gets better. Essentially, the way I would describe the sort of strategy of this team is pretty much protect Lapis, and should all things fail, we do have Seal in here to do enough damage to the boss stage. So as long as we get at least everybody but Lapis to the boss stage, we'll be safe. But pretty much Lapis doesn't die before the boss stage. Occasionally we get some weird stun lock that happens on the 4th wave. For the most part, the only unit we really see dying though is Seal, and that's just because the towers do enough ignore defense damage to Seal to kill her, and since they're element neutral, she's not really getting any bonus survivability. However, she's not going to get targeted on these waves. She'll get hit with some aftermath of the AoE skills from the water golem sometimes, but that's never enough to kill her unless she's been, you know, severely weakened by the crystals leading up to it. So we have the attack bar reduction, which is going to mean our team gets more turn advantage. We're going to have the bonus attack break. I talked about all these things when we were building Seal way earlier on. I know some of you were curious about why we were building the Wind Harpoo, but it was kind of leading up to using her in a situation like this. I knew we were going to have some issues in our Giants B10 team, just because we're either sacrificing damage or we're sacrificing a reliable cleanse. But I found that this team, even with a defense break on your monsters, you're pretty much going to be safe as long as Shannon's defense buff is up, and as long as, you know, your other buffs land. So it's really important to have accuracy with this team. You saw 41% accuracy on my Wind Harpoo, 49% accuracy on my Darian, I believe 47% accuracy on my Bella, and I have a tiny bit of accuracy on my Shannon as well. If I remember correctly, it's like 20% or somewhere around there. Another unit that could definitely use accuracy as well as Lapis. However, when it comes to Lapis, I wouldn't sacrifice too much speed or attack or survivability in order to do that, because you do want Lapis to really do that nice damage output and be able to heal all that health back with that 3rd skill when you deal enough damage. Now, building more accuracy is going to increase her chances of reducing the attack bar, but we kind of have the Wind Harpoo here to reduce the attack bar, so it's not as big of a deal. You can see the boss doesn't get too many turns. The attack bar reduction between Lapis and the Wind Harpoo is actually kind of ridiculous, even though Lapis doesn't have high accuracy. You can see our team is surviving even though we have a defense break on us, and we're getting these dots off, which is really nice. And here we're going to reduce the attack bar again. Lapis is taking some hits. That's really nice. Because with the defense buff up and with Darian's passive, I mean, she could survive. So right there, she got crit with attack buff on the Giant and defense break on her, and that's about the only situation she'll die. So even still, we have enough dots at this point where it doesn't matter if 3 other units died, because at this point the boss is going to die when they take a turn anyways. So that's pretty much it. The only other big issues this team could potentially have is if the RNG with Bella Dian is really, really terrible, because Bella Dian should, you know, theoretically have 100% chance to land the strip. However, with the accuracy resistance formula, that comes out to like 85% chance for the most part. So that's about what happens with that. So if that happens, if Bella Dian happens to miss the strip multiple times in a row, then it can be an issue. But otherwise, for the most part, this team is pretty consistent. I would give it about 85% consistency rating, maybe a little bit higher, but this team definitely has a lot of improvements to make. But if you're looking to transition from Giants B7 to Giants B10, this team can do it for you. you guys have seen all my runes. I'll go back over them again. I don't know if I showed a lot of Shannon's runes, but all these units are max skilled. All of them are 100% farmable. I mean, you get Shannon for free from the start. Darian and Bella you can get on Sundays in the light secret dungeon, and that's probably the most difficult part of this team. Otherwise, the Wind Harpoo, you get her from challenges as well. And same thing with Lapis. Lapis you get from just completing Mount Sis. Now, like I said, a direct upgrade to the team, if you did happen to take the Veramos route of progression, would be switching out the Wind Harpoo for Veramos. And using the Veramos leadership skill for HP, because it means your team's going to have a lot more survivability. You're going to have a more reliable continuous damage effect. Since it's on the first skill, you're going to have a lot more chances to land it, and you could essentially get a lot more continuous damage effects. At this point, if you've pulled a unit like Lucian or another crazy damage dealer, I wouldn't necessarily consider taking out Lapis for it. Now, if you happen to 6-star them, then maybe. And the reason I'm saying that is because although those damage dealers are really, really powerful in Giants B10, your runes might not be in the right place to put them into your Giants B10 team yet. And Lapis, between her self-healing and all the other aspects of utility she brings to Giants B10, taking her out might change the consistency of your team. Now, when it comes to speeding up your team, it pretty much is just going to take time. The more time you spend in Giants B10, the more runes you're going to have and the higher quality of runes you're going to have, and so therefore the more consistent your team is going to be. Now, honestly, this is a process that you just can't rush. I suppose if you decide to be pay to win, you could buy rune packs, but I mean, it's a game, and you could definitely progress really, really far into this game completely free to play. So I don't at all, want to push anybody to take that route. Honestly, just spend time, just let it farm in the background while you do other things. Don't get too crazy and watch it, because if you watch it nonstop, it'll feel like it moves way more slowly than it actually is. So if you just let this GB10 team farm in the background, you'll get plenty of good runes. At this point, the really big advantage to being in GB10 instead of GB7. Now, this was not the case when I started the game, over a year and a half ago. But now in GB10, you only get 5-star and 6-star runes, which means pretty much most of the rune drops you're going to be getting with 2 relevant substats are going to be direct upgrades. So you're going to also have a higher possibility of getting those 6-star runes, which is really, really nice, because when you start getting 6-star usable runes, that's when you start seeing really, really successful teams. That's when you can start making, even faster teams and making more damage dealers. That's pretty much going to be our next step, and I'm going to go talk about some monsters that I'm going to be building in the future. So after this run finishes up, we'll go and talk about that. But you guys can see we don't take a whole lot of damage with this team, even though we have a defense broken team, and even though we don't have cleansers. It's pretty much, we only take any serious amount of damage when the boss crits us on defense break, so with no defense buff from Shannon. But we're also going to get a whole bunch of mana at this point, and I've been using a lot of mana. I'm still at like 450,000. All these crystals are from challenges, in case anybody was worried about that. I know some people might I don't know, think that I'm getting crystals. I haven't purchased anything on this account. It's still 100% free to play. But let's talk about some monsters that we pulled. We did a summoning session, and I'm going to go ahead and put that in the end of the video if you guys want to go ahead and watch that. So but I did the whole summoning session. Here's all the stuff we got. I was really happy actually with how low the lightning rate was. We went ahead and fed the Nat 4s. It's not for free to play eyes, so I highly recommend you skip that part if the non free to play Nat 4 feeding concerns you. However, we didn't have to worry about feeding anything too good. We got a few things out of the summoning session that I was really excited about. There's plenty of units I do want to play with. First, we'll talk about the Water Grim Reaper. He's going to be used in our TOA team. He's kind of a beast. He has these AoE dots on the second skill, single target freeze, and he gets additional turns if he kills enemies with his first skill. So he's got a lot of flexibility in Trial of Ascension specifically. We've got Megan, who is one of my favorite upgrades to Shannon in Giants and Dragons team, of course in Dragons teams, but everywhere in the game in general. She's also really good in Arena because she increases your attack bar as well as giving you the attack and defense buff. She also provides this strip, which is really nice because if Bella derps, she has the same like 100% chance of stripping, and then a chance of landing harmful effect block as well. And then she has continuous damage effects on her first skill with a 100% chance, so she could land one-turn dots that just tick away at the Giant's health, so essentially can do more damage. Now, the big thing is, if anybody's thinking about transitioning from Shannon to Megan in their Giants B10 team, especially earlier in the game, her stats are going to need to be higher, just because she's a water unit, so she's going to take more damage. About 5,000 HP more than whatever your Shannon is at is probably what you're going to want to aim for. And also, the rest of your team is going to have to be stronger, and I say that because if you look at Megan and Shannon and compare them, you'll see, even though this is also on a 4-turn cooldown once it's max skilled, the attack and defense buff from Megan only lasts 2 turns, whereas the attack and defense buff from Shannon lasts 3 turns. So occasionally you're going to get that awkward gap in your team where you don't have attack and defense buff, which may lead to your team dying more often. Now, if you're getting into the point where you're adding more damage dealers, that's probably the same point you want to start adding Megan. For example, in my team, if I decided to take out Darien, for example, to add this Wind Minotaur or this Water Serpent, then I might at the same time switch out my Shannon for my Megan, just so that I can increase my overall damage output and the speed of my team. Other monsters I pulled from this session that I'm probably going to be building in the future are going to be the Water Imp Champion. Now, he's a really nice single target damage dealer for bosses, for both dragons and giants. He has a self-attack buff with his first skill, and he inflicts continuous damage if you land a crit, so that's really nice. Second skill, he does damage based on max HP, which on the boss wave specifically is going to do a lot of damage to the boss depending on how high your crit rate and crit damage are, and of course a little bit bonus from attack. But then in addition to that, you also get continuous damage here, so you get 2 skills with continuous damage already. And then the third skill, it attacks 5 times, which is very risky in Giants because he is very liable to get hit with a counterattack. But at the same time, each hit has a 25% chance to ignore defense, which could potentially mean he's doing a lot of damage. And with the self-attack buff and the ignore defense, he could essentially attack buff himself for 2 turns and then go into ignore defense without needing the buff of anyone else. So he's kind of independent of your buffer, whether it be Megan or Shannon. So even if your buffer happens to derp or has whatever AI moment where they don't use their buff, he can essentially sustain himself. Now, this is a unit for a team that has, better runes. It's like further down the line, but these are just units that I'm looking at. Now, there's a variety of other units here I'm going to be playing with. Now, of course, I got some skill ups for all these units, so I did summon quite a few scrolls. I believe it was more than 90. Also, other monsters that I do want you guys to keep an eye out for if you're just looking for a completely farmable teams and you're looking for upgrades in terms of damage dealers. I really like the Drunken Masters. The Fire, Water, and the Wind one are all usable somewhere in the game. The Wind one's pretty nice in Giants B10. He's got an additional attack, he's got that attack break with a 100% chance, which is going to be, pretty reliable. It also is guaranteed ignore defense on the first skill, so he's going to do a pretty decent amount of damage. He's got a bonus heal that's proportionate to your attack power, so the higher your attack is, the more healing your team will get, and his base attack is decent. And his third skill has a 100% chance to land defense break. He hits him 3 times, does a pretty substantial amount of damage if you have good enough runes on him, and then recovers the HP of all allies by 15% per turn, and that's the heal per turn buff. So he's got 2 abilities that do a heal. His second and his third skill both have a chance, a 30% and a 50% chance to proc into his first skill. So he could essentially do his third skill, for example, attack the enemy 3 times, weaken their defense, heal your team, and then proc into his first skill, which is going to ignore defense and attack break. Now that could be really good for his damage output, but again, it's another unit where all those multi-hits brings the risk of getting counterattacked and having your units get killed faster. So when it comes to, you know, thinking about damage dealers, you do have to keep in mind all of those things. But I just thought I would kind of share my process going forward and talk about what goes through my head when I'm adding units to team and when adding units to my team and when I'm building units up. So that's about it. I hope you guys enjoy the summoning session, but thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
entering zero gravity.
Hey guys, it's West again. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe for more.